Thursday, March 26, 12:29 p.m. So hopefully I got my microphone situation figured out. Yesterday's audio was a little all over the place, but if you're watching these videos again, you're probably gonna have like headphones on and sitting in a library, not not trying to, worried about the audio too much. So I apologize if that is a problem still in this video. But regardless, we are back on the markets. Currently I've pulled up Microsoft. This is one of the headlines, one of the stocks we're talking about. As always, a couple trading thoughts, considerations, and then some more generalized economic talking points in relation to current events. And so, again, trying to find other just kind of stocks that I would want to trade long. Again, I'm not trading actively in any meaningful sense because, again, I do not have constitutional rights. But we've covered the shorting of any sort of stimulation of appreciation. You get something that makes something go up, and then because I think it's evident that things get overshot both up and to the downside. I think it's more predictable to trade things that have overshot to the upside, and so we try to fade any sort of momentum. But trying to encapsulate any other type of trading theses that are executed, this just being, a long position on a really well-known, highly traded stock. And so from a technical level, again, if you assume this PE story is just gonna continue on, which again I'm super neutral on that, meaning should something be trading at 40 PE, 20 PE, minus 50 PE. I just think it's one of those things where it is what it is. These things are trading at where they're at, given stock, given sector, given market, and then most things kind of trade with the overall sentiment of the day. Things do react on stock-specific stuff. I think in the future, stock-specific stimulation will be way more pronounced and way more relevant, where it just feels like everyone's just a bunch of 3-year-old, 5-year-olds chasing the soccer ball and everyone's just chasing the big herd. I mean, it just feels like that is the mentality in these speculation markets. But regardless, assuming the PE story kind of trades the same for the ongoing future, which I think it will, I don't see any reason it wouldn't. But I think as people mature, these price to earnings will contract. And I say that with a medium to low level of confidence. But regardless, meaning if you're assuming market dynamics continue, these are where stuff starts to look interesting to me. Microsoft look interesting. Netflix, we've been following a little bit. It's popped up a little bit. But just from a technical, again, I've not dug into, what is Microsoft really making money on? A company you hear every single day, or again, if you're involved in this stuff, certainly as a consumer, you hear about them in buying things. But just from a technical, you pull up a chart, this looks interesting. Do I think Microsoft's going to be around for a long time? Yes. But the real question is, do I think the price action will appreciate from buying it at this level? And the fundamental ingredients to me, the biggest one is that price to earnings consideration that we just talked about. And then truly like the overall, again, demand situation, which is super general. It's like, what is the demand of a consumer? What is the demand of a consumer consuming Microsoft products? Again, I haven't done the research of the company to know all of that much, even with it being, integrated basically into everyday functions, right? Microsoft computers, the PC, so on and so forth. But assuming the population is going to increase, which I think that's like the most steadfast thing for the long position, more consumers, more demand, that's simple. Microsoft having market share, having a brand name, having, again, cash flowing products. People buy things, buy a computer, they get use out of it. The company makes money, the person gets value out of it. It's a win-win. Looking for places where good deals. This is a business where a lot of good deals. I'm a big fan of Xbox, big fan of video games. Again, that's going to be a demand structure that's around for, again, indefinitely. Same thing like we talked about with TV shows, cinema, writing, with visuals where you can sit down at your house and you pay $10 and watch basically unlimited stuff. The business model will certainly consolidate. How that looks like, when does that happen? Not sure. But when I'm looking for stuff to go long, I'm looking for ongoing demand presence with no sort of regulation consideration. Right? Those are the biggest ones, right? The alternative pharmaceutical disruptor space, once the policy makes any sense to the science, that's going to be huge. And so that's the biggest discrepancy. But the con to that is, again, when does that policy catch up? Again, you're living a time when all of analysis is derived, proven, sitting on the internet, and people just literally can't open their mouths without committing fraud, racketeering, conspiracy at the head of state level. So who knows, right? When we're talking about irrational markets and training large language models, I am training people, sentience. That's the largest language model out there. And so when does that shit make sense? Who knows? All to say, we're in a very nascent maturity environment and a very nascent financial environment. That is profoundly evident to me. But regardless, if you assume the market's going to trade as it has been, which I do, again, as the guy that's literally proven a renaissance is going to happen at some point. But if you assume current normal market conditions, these are starting to look interesting to me. Not a trade I'm going to take, but again, might take a small position on. Again, I prefer Netflix because then it gets to the right, because you're still looking for overall return, right? 100% return is 100% return. If I want to get 100% at Microsoft, I needed this to get to 740-ish. If I want to get 100% on Netflix, I needed to get to 185-ish. But again, I don't get to choose what the stocks do. I just look for the disparity that is present, that is the greatest, that I can manage the risk most reasonably, and I take that position. But my overall financial picture is I'm not really looking for trades actively. But for a long position of a well-known major cap stock, this stuff's starting to look interesting. Again, that's Microsoft specific to the overall. Again, when people just... the host, the guests on CNBC, when they say the market, they're not specific enough. When I say the market, I mean the S&P 500, just as a reference. That's not some sort of proof or anything. But I just, again, if you're watching my stuff, when I say the market, I am talking about the S&P 500. And so again, I see Scott Wapner, our judge, echoing, right, the interest rates, again, to the price action was another thing that popped up today. We'll give some more consideration to that here in a second on our talking points, but for the S&P 500, like Microsoft specifically, I see as like a range where it's like, okay, this is interesting to buy. Netflix, that's an interesting range to buy. The S&P 500, frankly, if you think there's going to be if we're going hard R, I would not think this is a place to buy. Personally, again, the word doesn't mean anything to me, but when people start echoing the sentiment, it's just this recession, capitulation, right? The really bad words in finance. It just makes me okay. It's like, but when do you buy? And again, this is just, to that consideration in and of itself, if you want to manage a position on an index fund, is again, multiple videos. Like it's a conversation like you guys have every single day. But if I was looking to initiate an overall market position, meaning some money into the S&P 500, I would still be kind of wary here. I would be more, again, the entirety of to maximize capitulation. This stuff over here is like when you kind of want to buy, big chunks of index funds. But past that, past capitulation moments where it's just sentiments at rock bottom, price actions at rock bottom, people thinking like the whole world's going to explode. Past that, everything is stock specific to me. And again, that's specifically to enter a position for the long term of an index. Like if I was 32 and didn't have all of science proven and I had access to the labor markets and I had a more normal kind of life situation, I wouldn't be like, this is the time to buy big. If I want to have, if I want to have a fund for 10, 20 years, it's like, I would still be like, this is a range where you could dump pretty heavy. It's not a capitulation moment like this. I don't even know if I want to call this capitulation. This is a policy reaction thingamabob. But you could just this is not a severe enough break from the current sentiment price action trend to warrant any sort of capitulation thing. It's a downtrend, and then if we don't have a recession, whatever that economically, again, trading, when people say buzzword recession, stock prices going down 20%. Logically, that is not what that word encapsulates. But Andrew did a good job from, historically the panic to depression evolution. Again, just panic is not rational. And so you just kind of, I don't know. But point being is this is not a break, severe enough price action break from sentiment to say, this is for sure a buying opportunity. Because then you could, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, we could be on here and it'd be way lower and be like, look at that. You could have, even if you wait it out and you only have to see your account depreciate 20% for like a month, the converse is also true, right? If you just would have waited 3 weeks, you would have seen 20% appreciation. And you'd been like, oh, right, And that's something you just have to, that's part of the game of trading and investing. You can't really avoid that. And the market is so irrational and everything is so nascent. It's just like, you can't avoid that stuff. But point being is this is not, again, like I said, I'm nibbling, taking small stuff. I'm not in a position where I'm actively trying to, like, because I would not say aggressive, but like I'm not, like I can't manage money in any meaningful sense because of the profound and extensive crime being committed against me. Overall, that is what I'm getting with the market. Again, we're waiting on any tweets from Trump, so on and so forth. That was my overall takeaway from the conversation around Microsoft, major cap, overall prospectus as of today. And so, again, on our stocks, the ones that we've been following, turns out, again, the selling. See, this is why it's just like, it makes sense until it doesn't. And it's just like immediate, meaning the one share. Again, I raised my price target or average price a little bit. I don't even really care about the overall average price. I mean, when you initiate a trade, you're trying to make money. And so my overall on SanDisk, still down $67. Where it's, again, if we have held that one share that we try to, again, dance around up here. But it's not dancing around. This, I mean, I'm reacting to the sentiment of the price action, and you always hit the pivot points. And if you're just wrong on the direction, again, we're overall still short, but we would have had one more share, again, another $100. We would have been overall profitable about $40, as opposed to, still down 60. And so it's just kind of like, sweet, fantastic. But I see this as just pressure from the overall market conditions. When is this Iran war going to stop, or, have some sort of meaningful ceasefire? Do ceasefires even matter? All of these contracts, it's just, we're at a place where, again, we're having lawyers and wars, just like comically fucking stupid to me. It's not going to mean anything. Oh yeah, dude, I'm not going to blow up your ship when you sail by, ha ha ha. Like, trying to, again, litigate war from one nation state to another just sounds like full renard if I've ever heard it myself. And so I put zero credence into it. The overall administration maturity is one that where it's just like, you've cried wolf too many times. I can't take you as mature, serious people. Anybody. I mean, I can't emphasize again how many times I've said it. If I'm criticizing a Republican, it doesn't mean I'm supporting a Democrat. If I'm criticizing a Democrat, it doesn't mean I'm supporting a Republican. That is a political ideology. Any ideology is such a low-level nothingness to me. But you have to engage in some level of differentiation to say, hey, this person's way stupider than that person sometimes. But at this point, again, everyone's just chickens with their heads cut off running around. And so price levels of SanDisk, again, still nothing really new. It could be the breakdown. It could be another one of these moments. This break to the upside, again, above the 725 of the break of this earnings is like a new high. It's like a new, you're almost in price discovery range. You didn't really have a breakout, but you nibbled, you kind of danced around, $50+ above. And so this is right where, again, a point where it could break down farther, it could bounce back up, but it's going to do something to me severe, stock specific to SanDisk itself. But that's our overall trades. Again, all of these other ones, Joby's, but now Joby is sub 850. We might have to, back. But then this is another thing is I don't like to buy as these things kind of go down. I like to buy the consolidation periods of the drop, and then again kind of wait. This is kind of now seriously going down from this level, so we're not going to buy here. We bought, I think yesterday, bought 5 shares. Big baller over here. But again, waiting to the next, you kind of let it settle to wherever its next range could be. And so if we just look historically, the history doesn't really matter that much to me. It's just kind of like the recent price action and current sentiment. And so we'll just kind of let this consolidate. Gemmy, again, do this. Gemmy and Joby, we're managing the same type of way. No real conviction on anything else. So let's just move on to our talking points. And so to the dual mandate. This is something I've heard a bunch. We've talked about, or is in relevance to the Fed, that you'll hear the Fed has a dual mandate of maintaining inflation as well as maintaining employment. Maximum employment, minimum inflation. We want nothing to go up price-wise, and we want everyone to be employed. To me, again, I would be, this is where, again, decision-making on large-scale management of money just comes from what makes sense and what doesn't by a simply analysis of the data, what's coming in, what doesn't. There's no, opinion. There's no secret analysis proving the Riemann hypothesis of managing money. And so inflation versus employment, to me, inflation is the most relevant thing of a Federal Reserve because you literally have a faucet where you can just turn on more money. And we have disparation, separation of nation states in a way where you can print money and create value for a section of the environment, the economy, one nation, and not like cause Venezuelan type blowout inflation where the dollar goes to nothing. And so that inflation is the biggest global thing to consideration for me, is like as a money manager, if what really have to understand that. Employment, maximum employment, again, it's still to this American sentiment. It's like the American dream, get the dream job. It's like, again, are you a billionaire's kid where you don't need money? Then are you employed? No. Does it matter to your life quality at all? At all? Zero. And so this, I have a job sentiment. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. And then again, we're back to the mid-level managers creating no real value, but on a personal level, wanting their total compensation to go up. And the sentiment is people can't even imagine not getting a promotion with their career. And it's just like you're not creating value. That is such a huge problem in the labor market and just money, all things money. But to this dual mandate, inflation versus employment, I'm still, again, the inflation part is what worries me the most. You just print too much and you blow up, the entire value of this piece of paper goes away. And so inflation, specifically printing money, more so than even like the consumer price index, I go and buy another 50 cents at milk. It's just like, did we print $10 trillion, $400 quadrillion? Printing money is what I think of what matters for inflation. When I think Federal Reserve, what matters is inflation, printing the money, that whole situation being under wraps, being controlled. Maximum employment, you want people to have quality of life. If that means higher job numbers, I think that is a weak correlation. And then, yeah, again, it's just the same conversation. But this dual mandate where you see talking about in comparison to England or somebody in Europe where they don't, it's just more consideration to inflation as opposed to employment, which I think it practically is the right thing to do. Because again, how many people can be out of a job for 6 months and they have a spouse or they have a parent or they have a sibling or they have a son or a daughter or something? Again, this American mentality of, I have mine, fuck you, go make yours, go get a job. It's just like money needs to work for everybody, and the overall economic development is profoundly outside of one person's ability to maintain or control a lot of different factors, right? Meta's laying off a ton of jobs. This person lays off a ton of jobs. So it's like you get a job, and then the next quarter you don't, and then the next quarter you do. And so it's like these job numbers to me just don't mean anything. Inflation, you can torch an entire country by printing too much. And so, bumping up against that, I just have, how do you do each and both? How do you limit inflation? Just turn off the faucet. How do you maximize employment? So then the conversation again to more of the direct lower interest rates, higher stock market. Okay, does this person? I am a business executive. I can take on more loan. I can go build a factory. Right, and then the ability for me to take on, okay, we talked before about how there's clear points when expansion for business evolution makes sense. There's other times when you can try to push it and it might pay off, it might not. There's a net benefit to, again, having quality of life. So if that manifests through lower interest rates, Johnny can build another factory and then they have stable jobs. But again, if you get a job for 18 months, that's not stability. It isn't. And so people that have jobs that are like not career positions or they can't see themselves for 10, 20 years with compensation growth, with promotions, again, meaningfully reflecting the value of the company, not meaning that individual employee has to create the value, but the company is growing. And so it's just one of those things where, again, people are fighting over breadcrumbs when you can fucking bake a whole cake and then everyone has slices, huge slices of wealth. And so the interest rates stimulating Johnny, the business owner, to create a factory, that would be a slight net positive. But again, the sentiment of having a job being a good thing, well, you can get fired in 6 months, or the entire United States is at will contracting. You can be fired for any reason. You can quit for any reason. And so the overall job numbers are so transient. It's just not inflation, and specifically to inflation, not even the interest rates to pay them back. It's just do not torch the value of what this piece of paper, this digit on a screen represents. The United States dollar. And right, it's just a digit on a screen. And so that popped up again. We haven't even really talked about the dual mandate. Again, regulating inflation versus maximizing employment. I just gave you everything I could, but I feel like, again, why is that the dichotomy? Why is that the present? Two things, the dovish versus the hawkish landings. There our bull market, our bear market, our kangaroo market hopping along. I like that one the best. But yeah, moving along. Rick Santelli says that we have a terrible 2-year auction in the bonds, followed by a slightly less terrible 5-year auction. Genuinely, I don't know what makes a good auction or a bad auction. I'm assuming there only could be one thing, is people didn't buy the bonds. So what would that say? Is like they don't see American debt as, again, reliable to or stable return, meaning they think people are going to default, not pay the bonds. So the overall sentiment that I got from that type of reaction was they don't have confidence in the American consumer or whatever debt product you're buying or investing in to be repaid. Again, I have nothing comes to mind at face value. That seems to be what that means. But again, I think the educated consumers. I made a whole video on that. That is the biggest thing that regulates demand, and it's a global conversation, not really super specific to one country. The biggest thing relevant to one country, right? Humans are humans, is the policy, is the government, right? Are we in North Korea or the United States? And people in the United States think the North Korea is way different than the United States. And I'm sitting here saying, here is the Constitution. What the fuck is that? And nobody cares. And so, moving along. I think that's... Oh, I just have Mark Cuban lends his private jet to fly a girl for a transfusion after insurance denies the transportation cost, going from Minneapolis to Cincinnati. Again, shout out to Mark Cuban. If my rights ever get violated, if my story ever gets told, if history doesn't snuff out my life because they can't accept the consequences of their actions, you'll see how big of a pile of shit Mark Cuban really is. And so, yet more virtue signaling from Mark Cuban when he could open his mouth and tell the truth and help a profound amount of people with biological sciences immediately. But will he do so? No, he's a bitch. But glad to see his virtue signaling. And then we had another interesting talking point, kind of a big one, or kind of like the opposite. Kyle Bass was on CNBC talking kind of like the positives of this Iran conflict, saying that we did have a plan, meaning the United States government. He was talking like he was again involved in some sort of this decision-making or cabinets or periphery or something. But he says, Iran has 900 pounds of enriched uranium. The Becky Quick and Joe Kernan are sitting there talking like, how sure? Again, that's the military operation. How sure is your intelligence? I don't know. How sure can you be of radiation signatures in general? Again, you can't hide shit even in the mountains, boys and girls, even in space when you put it up in orbit. And so there's a lot of stuff going on there that's just like, I have profound intuition. There's technological stuff I don't have access to that is directly would be just yes or no to certain phenomenon. The overarching of all physical phenomenon, which I'm still going to make a video. It's not that relevant to what I'm doing day to day. But there's no, back to when the chick comes up to me at HQ Flats and, there's stuff you can't even imagine. All the walking through walls, you mean mass is discrete and there's no real space, and so if you line it up like Chinese precision walking, you can move through things? Yeah, I have no idea about that. Oh, some people have red eyes and left-handed dominant, and the fundamental stability, too, manifests itself like a different or a modified genetic code? Oh, yeah, I have no idea about that. Oh, that super light material from the grays that you guys gotten from Roswell, where it's layered atom by atom, electron by electron. Oh, yeah, I have no idea about that. And I can go on and on and on. But life is just serendipitous. It just happens, and people on Earth are playing greatness and countries and this and that. And there's engineering things that are just directly true and real that without, again, not even seeing them, because I know the overarching principles. But point being is there's technology where, again, the whole energy conversation is just bullshit. These public companies aren't doing real shit. But point being is back to to the military analysis of how sure is intelligence. I'm not exactly sure who has what. But we'll get it a whole nother episode, whole nother video. Kyle Bass is saying the United States has a plan, the technology of assuring that intelligence could be way more profound than the public is aware. Well, it is way more profound than the public is aware. But there's still limits and there's still whole conversations. But he's talking about, this overall motivation of Iran, bad regime, agreed. Saying this group or this religion or this ethnicity overall is bad is an overgeneralization. But extremism coming out of Islamic states, specifically the Middle East, definitely. And so you're talking about, again, killing the leadership. To me, that's the immediate thing I'm thinking of, what are you accomplishing? And then it's like, okay, well, we have a plan. We're stopping Iran from having a nuclear weapon. And so then there's having a nuclear weapon and using a nuclear weapon. And obviously, again, if we look at history, what is the only country that has deployed nuclear warheads? Oh, and so that's going to be our referee. But then, again, more poignantly to operation practicality, if you have intelligence behind closed doors, and you can say, here, they clearly are enriching in uranium with the intent, because they used the verbiage, imminent threat. Is that imminent threat just ownership and possession of a nuclear warhead? Again, still not convinced of how assured this enrichment process from we're here and then we can get here, we can hide this over here, we can destroy this over here and be sure that they don't have something else over here. I'm not sold in any way, shape, or form, and I have profoundly more access, and again, I can demonstrate to you the principles that Kyle Bass is, again. I don't know what anybody's doing at this point. But having nuclear weapons versus enriching uranium to even owning or possessing nuclear weapons, to me, that conversation has not been articulated meaningfully, even the parts that can be public. But then killing the leadership versus saying that they have a plan where you kill leaders. That doesn't take away from bombs. It is not articulated. Again, they just say stuff where they're like assured. Yeah, man, they're wrong. Nope, not buying it. I'm trying to argue the United States have a plan, because then why would you not have a joint operation? Why would any other NATO country blink for 2 seconds? Iran has a nuclear weapon directly relevant to usage. Geographically, the United States is profoundly away from the Middle East in comparison to Europe. And so if there was some, again, intelligence definitiveness from the United States, doesn't matter who had gathered it, Israel, the United States, I don't know, some dude in Lebanon that decided to spy on what insurgency groups up there. The Houthis is Yemen, Hamas. I'm thinking it's more Hamas is that one. But again, regardless, whatever insurgency group is up there, wherever the intelligence comes from, it doesn't matter. And so if you have the United States being, again, major player, obviously, saying we have this assured intelligence, Iran is an imminent threat, you would have no pushback from NATO countries. None, 0%. Europe would be sounding the alarm bells out the wazoo. This guy has a nuke. They're about to launch it. What do we do? And so when you're seeing NATO countries not jumping, hand over fist, they would be initiating the things. Again, specifically even to the United European Union intelligence forces to the Israeli Mossad, there would be way more urgency coming out of Europe. Again, if this intelligence of this imminent threat, enriched uranium, because it just would affect Europe so profoundly. It affects everybody profoundly, but again, it's just, to me, if that intelligence was there, there would be none of this Trump saying, oh, NATO didn't come and support us. It wouldn't be an us. It would be, again, mutually assured destruction is what nuclear war is. And you don't see that. That is what you don't see. So again, then we're back to the administration, hey, we're going to go visit a dead service member. Did you see we own the libs? Dow Jones 50,000. I mean, you're at that level of maturity. It's just and then historically, every administration, every government saying, we're winning, we're doing the best, we're accomplishing victory us, victory us, victory us. That's my take, and I'm very sure I'm right. Because again, it's the whole Europe response. If you had some intel that was not present to the public right now, there would be a joint action, which leads me back to my point: is that if there needs to be a war, if there's some bit of intelligence, this country is doing something so profound, you would have no resistance from an international unit of both special operations, intelligence, the whole shebang. But that's already in the environment that I'm involved in. where it's like these wars happen and you still have not complete, but extreme, not cordiality, but like sharing of intelligence, certainly, even in war times, even in all of this shit. I need to make this other episode because there's some other stuff that just doesn't make sense to me. And it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong on this. I don't know. But I don't know what anybody's doing. But that's the whole point of hypocrisy. It is not rational. It doesn't make any sense. And so, no, I do not agree with Kyle Bass. And again, I'm sitting here trying to make the argument that there's some plan. Europe would have responded without any hesitancy, without any resistance, if there was an imminent threat. Whatever that verbiage was meant to portray, you would not see any pushback from any European nation. None, zero. Or any any nation, every nation would be like, okay, this dude's gearing up to say Allahu Akbar and launch a fucking nuke. Everyone's like, yeah, okay, we're going to calm that down a little bit. And so, again, trying to, talk out any logic of, without access to the control room, the planning room, but there isn't. Pete Hegseth and Kash Patel and Donald Trump are not operatives. They're not intelligence anything. They're idiots. And so, and then again, we're going to own the libs, Dow Jones at 50,000. It's just like in every press conference. J.D. Vance was rambling on about Joe Biden causing the price action of oil right now, currently being Joe Biden's fault. I mean, you were just like, what the fuck am I looking at? But, again, I don't have constitutional rights, so what are we fighting for at all? What imminent threat? What is going on? Who knows? That is what I have for talking points. Again, overall trading. Not really doing anything because, again, I still don't have constitutional rights. Not going to drag it on any longer. Thank you for watching. Hopefully the audio is all right, and we'll check in later. Thursday, March 26, 2:16 p.m. What's up, everybody? Checking back in on our trading log. Video trade vlog. And so I've opened a short position. We are back over at CF. Again, most of the major headlines are the Iranian war conflict. We talked about that pretty extensively this morning. We'll continue to reference anything we need to. Some finishing thoughts from there, and then a couple other talking points. But I just think the overall, again, this CF, and shout out to Joe Terranova. That's where I heard from it. But you're looking at a company with, again, we have a dividend. I don't like that. But we have this is a 20-year, this is 20-year monthly. And so we have something that's been around for a long time. Again, I haven't looked into the company a bunch, but not a huge fan of the dividend. But I see this as short-term stimulus specific. Again, this is like processing materials for oil refinery or just crude resource refinery. And so we're seeing a very not convincing pop. Again, this isn't going up hundreds of percent on this news. And I think the wishy-washy back and forth with this Iran conflict, I see this as a short-term stimulus to the upside for this stock. So I opened another position. Again, we made about $40 on our first entry here. Again, another small position. But I don't know, $1,000 exposed. It's not, it's small, but it's not huge. Because again, with these shorts, it's always in the mentality. It's like, okay, why wouldn't this thing go to $1,000? Obviously I took the position, don't think it's going to, but I don't see much more appreciation from this Iranian conflict. Iran saying, we're never giving up. Trump saying, literally just now saying Iran's begging for ceasefire, which is just like, in the locker room talk, again, it's not offensive. It's just juvenile to the point where you can't be a commander-in-chief in terms of like operations. Like clearly they're not begging for a ceasefire, else there would be one. Right? It's just Donald Trump is an absolute fucking clown. This entire society is a fucking joke. But I see this as short-term stimulus, so I open a small position here. Expect to, price target. Which again, I don't even really like price target because it's like you're expecting it to go to a certain level, which is true, but you're really just managing a trade once you enter it. But I would say my price target, again, is something like 120 or below. So looking to make $100, $200. Again, I'm looking for positions where I have high enough convictions where I don't really have a stop. And then the position size is small enough, big enough to make something, small enough where I can manage it meaningfully. And so that is what I've added since the morning. I did nibble on Jemmy and Joby at a small level. What we said earlier still holds, hold 2 hours later. But just meaning we're right at this tipping point to me where a big drawdown would not be surprising on the overall index funds. But I still want to buy a little bit more. Still having about $20,000 to, again, if we have a big sort of retracement, which I don't I don't know. Again, nobody knows. Nobody knows shit. But enough for me to nibble a little bit more here. But this other $20,000, less the short positions I have, is to add to these index funds. So if we get a big drawdown, I will be adding more over here. I've nibbled a little bit more again. I think another 10 shares here and 10 shares on QQQI today. Just trying to bolster those income positions on these drawdowns without exposing too much, because a further, big dump into here, further downward pressure, which is what I'm expecting. Because in overall, again, uncertainty and war and destruction of infrastructure is net bad thing, right? So back over to this CF thing, right, kind of like the sentiment in my head is like, okay, the war continues on for a while, oil's in great demand, we're all going to the moon. But it just like, again, the overall direction of the stimulus is not, it's very herky-jerky. The move itself is not very convincing. I was going to say something else, and I just kind of blanked on where I was going. So I'm not going to try to continue on. Forget what I was going to say. But that is what we've done over here with the big drawdown. Or again, so meaning this stock appreciation to me is directly caused, again, without any sort of like validating data, but oil sector adjacent pops up, war, makes sense. The point being is war being net detrimental to all infrastructure and all productivity and profitability. It doesn't mean just because people have more interest, right? There's a bunch of people clicking buttons within a liquid market. Like, where do I put my money? Oh, this thing goes up now. But meaning war is overall not profitable, right? So it's like everything can just go down from overall conflict. Do I think the conflict is big enough and pervasive enough to cause genuine economic depression all across the board? No. So it's just like, and we're back in this current, we're in the river, and there's bits of data floating past, but they're not secured on the embankment either. And so it's like, you have some things that make sense, you have other things that make sense, you have confirmation bias. If you're long, you're going to think, oh, this makes sense to bolster my position. If you're short, you're going to think, oh, I don't agree with that. So you have that sentiment churning. Again, I don't know. I just see this overall war situation as fleeting stimulus for this stock specifically. Overall, I see it as short-term to medium-term detrimental to the overall market conditions. And so that is what again, anything that came to mind since the morning discussion. But continuing on with this, we have a plan in this, an imminent threat, and we're securing the safety of Americans well into the future. Again, as I sit here without constitutional rights and grave bodily harm, and without the ability to buy food, without the ability to feel safe and manage a life and have any quality whatsoever, you serve nothing. It's a disgrace. If you're involved in an academic institution or law enforcement, your entire family is going to fucking prison. Or if not, you can hide like little bitches behind your screens, a bunch of cowards that don't contribute anything to society, just start wars and then bitch around and contribute nothing like the lazy sacks of shit you are. Hide behind your little screens. High intelligence agencies, you guys can't think for yourself. You guys can't raise your kids. You send them to school to steal from me, and then you just lie. And at some point, you have to stop doing that. But you guys are worthless fucking kids who contribute, again, nothing to society. And so, the safety of Americans, how? Right? Well, again, we have these airmen that have been killed, refueling stuff, going to the gas station. We've covered at length. You can't be caught slipping at the gas station, whether it's on Livingston Avenue in Columbus or at Tehran, Iran. You can't be caught slipping at the gas station. Or I guess that was in, Syria or Iraq. But it doesn't matter. But it's like, okay, we have death numbers, right? So how is that protecting American citizens? Well, it's for the greater course of the more of the American citizens. Okay, well, how about the ones that were killed from that Senegalese man with the Iranian people on his shirt running around L.A.? Did you protect those? So, like, where's the quantification of the American lives that you've protected? You've thwarted some again. Where's the rattling the or not rattling the sabers, but rallying the troops to, again, Iran's this big nuclear threat. Europe would certainly have a huge reaction, and they don't. And so it's just like, then the Trump administration, do they say whatever benefits them demonstrably? I will never have a career or a family or live one day of my life because I was born into a world of competition, competing over nothing, and that is not how the economic development works. And so, all of the privileged people, I just want to be in the game so bad, and I can't, and everything is just Life sucks. Life is a bigger, it's torture. I've never experienced anything besides prolific and extensive torture. SanDisk is down again a little bit more. Nothing new to comment here. Just sticking with our talking points for now. So the future safety of America, and this overarching national security. We're back right into this. People are afraid of the boogeyman that doesn't exist. That guy over there in a turban saying Allahu Akbar is the most terrifying thing in the world. And in reality, you just have, again, a commander-in-chief who's not one, who's literally a celebrity treating his military like it's like his thing to do for a career. You know, once you become the C-suite, then you get a personal assistant. Once you become the president, well, you start a war. Ha 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 ha. It's a profound fucking embarrassment. Donald Trump is not a man. Pete Hegseth is not a man. Michael DeWine is not a man. Andrew Ginther is not a man. Jim Jordan is not a man. They are pussy, coward, fucking losers. But it's not their life. It's not their family. And they've again, I have not met one person in the state of Ohio or ever anywhere that isn't just competing over nothing. Oh, great. And so no, you've not secured the future safety of Americans. You've directly caused the death of many dozens of them. You've injured dozens more. You're going to, again, these periphery insurgency acts of terrorism are going to keep happening. It's going to be more stimulation. And then, yeah, that's all I can say for, again, this continued absolute abomination that is the Trump administration. But again, yeah, like I said, I'm an American citizen. I have grave bodily harm. I don't have constitutional rights. I can't start a business. I can't have a career, and I can't have a family. So yeah, keep serving the law and stuff or whatever. But more to, again, just a general economic talking point. We discussed crypto-backed mortgages. This sounded absolutely retarded. Because again, it's like this. I'm somebody from Better, which I don't know if that was a Jake Paul company or something else. But you just have some guy on there. It looks like another one of those Indian, this conglomeration of what is the ethnicity of people from India. You never know. Dan Niles. Shout out Dan Niles. But you have crypto-backed mortgages as well. Again, the sentiment is presented like, now you have this more diversity of financial products in which you too can own a home. And it's like, who the fuck would want to get a mortgage based on any sort? Again, this is the general principle from 1929, where it's you having bankers loaning money against asset prices in a highly speculative environment where everything's trading at 40 times potential to maybe earn that dollar. It's like, of course, this stuff's going to be extremely volatile. I would not underwrite loans as stocks as collateral, as crypto as collateral, as any of that shit. Just sounds dumb as anything. It's not, but then it's not, and then it's the converse. Oh my goodness, just give me my money and let me leave this fucking shithole country. I'm so tired of trying to present value when it's literally everything that I have presented out of all of my videos is grow up. It's truly just grow up. People know how to behave, grow up. And I will never live a day of my life because the answer to that will be no. Tim Doon is not a medical fucking doctor. My God. Ross Warner is not a medical doctor. My God. James Ryan is not an attorney. Richard Reese is not an attorney. They are coward, loser, fucking idiots that are lying. They've slandered my name, defamed my character, and now I cannot have a career or a family. Throw away their professional licensures yesterday. David Paletta is not a mathematician. Matthew Hedden is not a mathematician. They are criminals. That's all they've ever been. That's all they ever will be. And they're too pathetic. And they sit there and contribute nothing to society. And now I don't get to live a life. See, I mean, that's the American dream. Is all the pathets from high school get to have careers and families. And you don't get to have a fucking life. Because everyone's a bunch of liars. And so, yeah, go write mortgages based on crypto. Go think crypto's a magical new thing for currency when everybody's dollars is literally digits on a screen. Yeah, man. Go listen to Charlie Munger. He's doing well. Oh, yeah, that's right. He's stupid and he's dead. But yeah, man. Awesome. Let's go look at Warren Buffett. What's he up to? Buy and hold. Whoa, what a shocker. Yeah. And then because this crypto-backed loan, you can get a double loan. You can get a loan to pay for your loan. And as long as the crypto prices keep growing up, that's a great financial product brought to you by the CEO of Better. This is what I'm talking about. This is like isn't fraud, but it's like what value as an entrepreneur is nothing. You're just a market share idiot yelling out buzzwords. Oh, we have a new financial product. Oh, that's great. You can own a home. Oh, that's great. A double, triple loan for to secure the American dream of owning a home. It's just nonsense bullshit. So again, I live in a world with no maturity. Truly, the overarching thing is grow up. It's just grow up and nobody does. And so we continue to provide commentary on the profound illiteracy and degeneracy that is the American way of life. Let's check back in for CF, and that will probably do it for me today. And, we'll hold this overnight. Again, it's one of those positions where it's just like, could go to $1,000, and you miss out on like $8,000 in like a day over the dumbest shit ever. But I want to trade. I want to be in the game. I want to participate in the world, and I can't because nobody cares. Nobody ever will care. And anybody that's stealing from my property, I want you in prison for the rest of your life. But there will be no punishment. People will just play games. Why is there another war? Why are people dying of cancer? Where's my paycheck? Haha. I'm going to create no value, have no fundamental discovery, but I want more money. Bottom-feeding fucking bitches, man. That's what I got for today. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.